The universal language of nature is invisible, yet it is what connects all living beings into a single whole. In forests, tree roots are linked with fungal networks, forming a complex and interconnected system beneath the soil that scientists call the wood wide web. This network not only distributes water and nutrients, but also enables plants to exchange information. Plants communicate in two major ways: chemically, by releasing specific molecules, and electrically, by sending electrical signals similar to nerve impulses in animals and humans. For example, when insects attack, a tree generates an electrical signal that triggers defensive responses. This signal can travel through roots into the fungal network, reaching other trees. A similar effect was detected by scientists during a solar eclipse. The bioelectric signals of trees began to synchronize, forming a single impulse. The oldest trees responded first, as if they remembered such events, and were warning the younger ones. Through electrical signals, plants can coordinate their growth, warn each other of danger, adapt collectively to stress, and even store shared memory. It is precisely this finely tuned system that is now being disrupted by micro and nanoplastics. Today, forests have become vast reservoirs of microplastics. Research shows that forests capture microplastic from the atmosphere. As air currents pass through forests, they carry tons of microplastic particles. The forest functions as a massive filter. Tree canopies and leaves literally comb out particles from the air. In the past, this process helped purify the atmosphere from dust and dirt. Today, however, along with these natural particles, micro and nanoplastic are also being trapped. Unlike dust, which can become part of organic matter, plastic does not decompose. It remains in leaves, accumulates in soil, and persists in forest air. Every day, dozens of microplastic particles settle on each square meter of the forest canopy. Scientists estimated the annual deposition of microplastics in forest soils and showed that it correlates with the scale of plastic production in Europe. Assuming that atmospheric fallout is the primary source, they concluded that roughly 400,000 microplastic particles per square meter could accumulate in forest soil over a 70-year period. Charged particles distort bioelectrical signals and deprive forests of their ability to adapt and survive. Negatively charged nanoparticles penetrate plant roots more easily, disrupting nutrient absorption. As a result, growth slows down and root formation is impaired. In addition, electrostatically charged micro and nanoparticles of plastic adhere to leaves and penetrate plant cells, impairing photosynthesis. They damage chloroplasts, the energy centers of plant cells, the analog of mitochondria in animal and human cells. Prolonged exposure to micro and nanoplastics reduces the ability of plants to produce oxygen. Some of the world's forests, such as the eastern forests of the Amazon, are already emitting more carbon dioxide than they produce oxygen. Micro and nanoplastics can penetrate the brains of animals. Electrostatically charged plastic particles damage brain cells and disrupt the transmission of nerve impulses. This causes malfunctions in the nervous system, from reduced vision, hearing, and smell to impaired motor coordination. As a result, animals struggle to navigate, find food, avoid danger, and to communicate with one another. And all of this greatly reduces their chances of survival. These effects mirror the early signs of neurodegenerative diseases in humans. According to the Worldwide Fund for Nature, over the past 50 years, the global population of wild animals has declined by nearly 70%. People can't even protect those they've taken responsibility for. Household pets are also poisoned by micro and nanoplastics. Pet food contains PET, the same plastic used to make bottles. Moreover, microplastic particles have been found in the tissues of cats and dogs. Scientists analyzed tissue samples from 49 animals, 24 cats and 25 dogs, that had died of natural causes and found that more than 70% of them had microplastics present in multiple organs. The rate of insect extinction is 8 times higher than that of mammals, birds, or reptiles. The crisis is especially severe for pollinators, bees, whose role in ecosystems and agriculture is critical. Wild and domesticated bees pollinate 75% of agricultural crops and 90% of wild flowering plants. More than 30% of the world's food production depends on bees. Today, populations of honeybees and wild bees are declining rapidly. If this trend continues, half of all bee populations may disappear within the next decade. The disappearance of bees means the loss of the link that connects plants and food, nature, and humanity. Studies by Indian researchers have identified a correlation between microplastic pollution and declining populations of insects. Bees interact with their environment through electrical impulses. They navigate not only by scent, color, and flower shape, but also, remarkably, by sensing a flower's electric field. When a bee approaches a flower, they communicate through the electrical field. As bees fly, friction with the air gives their bodies a positive charge, while flowers, being grounded, carry a negative charge. This difference creates an electric field that allows pollen to transfer to the bee even before it lands. Experiments have shown that bees can distinguish flowers by their electric fields, associate specific electrical signals with the presence of nectar, and even determine a flower's freshness by the strength of its residual charge. After a flower has been visited, its electric field weakens, and other bees can read the signal that the flower contains less nectar. Moreover, the bee's own electric charge can stimulate a plant to release fragrance, attracting even more pollinators. Thus, an entire electrical communication system operates between bees and flowers. The electrostatic charge carried by micro and nanoplastics distorts these electrical impulses, affecting the bee's brain and nervous system. As a result, bees can no longer recognize flowers, locate nectar, find its way home, or identify members of their colony. Even the smallest doses of microplastics can be lethal to bees. Bees are covered in sensitive hairs and constantly interact with their environment, allowing plastic particles to settle on their bodies and easily penetrate them. One of the leading experts studying the impact of microplastics on insects is Professor David Baracchi, PhD in ecology and animal ethology, biologist, and head of the Cognitive and Behavioral Ecology Lab, B-Lab, at the University of Florence.
We already know from our studies and studies from other colleagues that, for instance, the microplastic can affect the gut microbiome. So if they feed with microplastics, this can generate dysbiosis, or the microbiota can be affected. In the same way, we found that it can affect the immune response. So both honeybees and bumblebees have a kind of immune depression, so they are not any longer able to fight infections. And they can also show altered behavior. So for instance, again, learning and memory is affected. Polyethylene doesn't seem to harm too much honeybees, and polyestyrene had a strong impact not only on survival but also on learning and memory. So in our experiment, we really found that this polymer, concentration that we probably can find in environment, can actually impair memory formation and memory retrieval. And this is, of course, alarming because for honeybees, it's, as I said, it's very, very important to have a good learning and memory capabilities.
When microplastics enter a bee's body through food or air, they damage the intestine, disrupt metabolism and reproductive function, weaken the immune system, and alter their behavior, even to the point of losing the ability to navigate. Across the globe, scientists are observing an alarming trend. The number of wild birds is rapidly declining. In North America alone, over the past 50 years, approximately 3 billion birds have disappeared. That is a quarter of the entire bird population. Electrical signals play as vital a role in the lives of birds as they do throughout the entire biosphere. The avian nervous system functions through transmission of electrical signals from the brain to all parts of the body. Those impulses control movements of wings, tail, and body in flight, vision and coordination, cognitive responses, for example, evading predators, song and vocal communication. Birds are true living navigators capable of traveling thousands of kilometers and returning precisely to the same locations year after year. Scientists have discovered that many migratory birds use Earth's magnetic field for orientation. Imagine an airplane. A pilot sees a radar screen with lines and markers to avoid getting lost in the sky. For birds, their eyes serve as such a radar. Specialized molecules in their eyes detect both light and Earth's magnetic field, converting them into electrical signals. In the brain, those signals form an image with field lines superimposed on the real world. A bird simultaneously sees clouds, land, and its magnetic radar, allowing it to maintain course in any direction with ease. Electrostatically charged micro and nanoplastic particles entering a bird's body distort electrical impulses and disrupt functioning of its nervous system. This leads to loss of motor coordination, weakened memory and learning ability, and impaired vocalization and spatial orientation. Externally, this manifests as increasingly erratic flight, unstable behavior, and even softer, weakened chirping. Nestlings are especially vulnerable. Many do not survive to adulthood, and those that do often exhibit cognitive impairments. However, that's not all. Plastics damage the liver, kidneys, stomach, and brain of birds, causing symptoms that resemble Alzheimer's disease. Even birds that appear healthy lose the ability to adequately care for their partners and offspring, sharply reducing their chances of successful reproduction. Beneath the surface reigns a unique world where vision weakens and sounds become distorted. In such conditions, marine life perceives reality differently. Through electroreception, the ability to sense faint electric fields and navigate by them. Predators such as sharks can detect tiny electrical impulses produced by muscle contractions and the heartbeat of their prey. Even if a fish remains motionless and hidden in sand, its bioelectric signals reveal its location. All living organisms in water generate continuous bioelectric fields due to ion flow across their skin. Those fields are subtly altered when the animal moves or when another living being appears nearby. Electrical impulses are an inseparable part of life itself, even underwater. Electrostatically charged micro and nanoplastics can distort or block those signals, which makes marine creatures especially vulnerable. As a result, marine animals and fish lose their ability to accurately locate prey, avoid predators, and follow migration routes. This threatens their survival and leads to population declines. Furthermore, fish exposed to microplastics exhibit a wide range of toxic effects, from immune system dysfunction to altered blood composition. Signs of neurotoxicity, growth retardation, and reduced reproductive capacity have also been documented in fish. All processes in the biosphere rely on extremely subtle electrical impulses. It is these impulses that become distorted by electrostatically charged micro and nanoplastic. Micro and nanoplastics have already permeated every environment and integrated into all ecosystems. The examples given here represent only a small part of a global problem. Disruptions are occurring throughout the biosphere without exception, and the outcome is the same everywhere. Distortion of signal transmission, breakdown of biological connections, malfunction of living systems, and ultimately, the death of life itself. Micro and nanoplastics are everywhere, and everything they touch is slowly dying.
Charged micro and nanoplastics disturb the natural biological impulses that form the very foundation of life. Gradually, they erode the mechanisms that allow the biospheres to exist and interact. This decay begins from within, slowly, almost imperceptibly, yet inevitably. Even what appears healthy and alive today is already contaminated by micro and nanoplastics. Today, so many of these particles have already accumulated on our planet that they will be enough to destroy the entire biosphere several times over. And their numbers continue to grow each day. Nature is not merely a habitat. It's our breath, our nourishment, and our protection. Humanity can survive without technology, but not without air, water, and living organisms. When life on Earth dies, humanity dies with it. The truth is that we do not exist separately from nature, no matter how much we try to convince ourselves otherwise. We're part of it.
Today, the ALLATRA team is in Bonn for the 62nd session of the subsidiary bodies under the UN Climate Convention SB 62, also known as the June Climate Meetings. Around 4,000 delegates from all over the world have gathered here to prepare for the upcoming UN Climate Conference COP30 in Brazil. The ALLATRA team has given several presentations at SB 62, covering topics such as biosphere pollution by nanoplastics, the Siberian magma plume, and the increase in natural disasters. These contributions generated strong interest and broad resonance among the audience. We firmly believe that a united international scientific community is essential to address the urgent global challenges of our time. Only through global cooperation can solutions be found for these existential threats.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, we are from the ALLATRA International Public Movement, an independent volunteer organization conducting large-scale research in the fields of geodynamics and environmental transformation. For over 3 decades, this interdisciplinary research has explored the root causes of the global crisis. And for more than 10 years, our volunteers are sharing these unfiltered findings with the world. Our work has been shared at the highest levels, from UN forums like COPE to a private audience with His Holiness Pope Francis, who personally blessed our efforts to protect humanity. We believe that bridging science, society, and all sectors of responsibility is essential to navigating the challenges ahead. Our research has culminated in 3 reports. One detailed the alarming growth of disasters you just saw. The next uncovers the invisible plague of nanoplastics. The third reveals a geodynamic threat originated deep within the Earth. We are here today to discuss a threat that until recently has remained largely invisible, and yet it is scaling into a planetary crisis. We are talking about nanoplastics. This presentation, Nanoplastics in the Biosphere from Molecular Impact to Planetary Crisis, will reveal how these microscopic particles are not just an environmental issue, but a profound challenge to a global climate stability and the very future of human health. We present this crucial information on behalf of a collaboration between ALLATRA International Public Movement, the Bolivian Catholic University San Pablo, and the Creative Society International Project. We call our era the information age, the space age, but geologists of the future may well call it the plastic age. Since the 1950s, we have produced over 9 billion tons of plastic. As you can see from this chart, based on the data in our report, only a tiny fraction is recycled. The vast majority, billions of tons, has been discarded. But here is the critical point. Discarded does not mean gone. Every single piece of that plastic which is ever produced, with an exception of small amount, we are incinerated. still exists. It is now breaking down into a fine toxic dust that is silently blanketing our planet, a legacy that we will leave for millennia. This toxic dust has no borders. It's truly a global contaminant. As our report documents, scientists have found nanoplastics in the most remote places on Earth, from the crusting depths of Mariana Trench to the pristine summit of Mount Everest, frozen in Arctic ice and carried on atmospheric currents across continents. More alarmingly, they have infiltrated our life completely. They are in the water we drink, both tap and bottled. They are in the soil that grows our food, which means that they are in the fruits and vegetables that we eat. They are in the rain that falls from the sky, and more distinctly in the very air we breathe. How does a plastic bottle become a global threat? Through fragmentation. Under the influence of sunlight and water, plastics objects don't biodegrade like organic matter. They simply break apart into smaller and smaller pieces. First, microplastics, then nanoplastics. These particles are smaller than a virus, and these nanoscale, their property, change. They become so light that they can carry it by the wind like a gas. Their surface areas becomes immense, allowing them to carry other toxins. This is invisible threat, a process turning our plastic waste into a pervasive, penetrating dust that our planet has no way of cleaning up. As outlined in section 2 of our report, the consequences for the biosphere are catastrophic. The very foundation of our marine food web, plankton, is indigesting these particles. This is terrifying because oceanic plankton produces more than half of the oxygen we breathe. When plankton is sick, the planet cannot breathe. Our coral reefs, the vibrant cities of the sea, are dying. They mistake plastic for food, leading to diseases and bleaching. The entire food chain is contaminated. Every animal in the ocean, from the smallest fish to the great whales, is consuming plastic. This isn't an ecological tragedy. This is a dismantling of our planet life support systems. And what affects the planet affects us. The invasion is not just external, it is internal. As section 3 of our report details, nanoplastics are now found in every single human organ has been tested. They are in our blood, our lungs, our livers. Most shockingly, recent studies have found staggering concentration in the human brain. To give you a tangible example, the average person today may have the equivalent of the entire plastic spoon worth of a nanoplastics accumulated in the brain tissue. Let that sink in. It is not a distant, abstract environmental problem. This is a direct contamination of our bodies. How can something so small be so dangerous? The answer lies in the physics and biology. Nanoplastics carry an electrostatic charge. This charge acts like a key, allowing them to bypass our body's natural defenses and penetrate deep inside our cells. Once inside, they target the very power horses of our cells, the mitochondria. By disrupting mitochondrial function, they cut off the cell's energy supply. This leads to oxidative stress, which is a primary driver of aging and disease. They also cause direct physical damage to our DNA, leading to mutations. This is cellular sabotage on a massive scale, happening inside all of us right now. The cellular damage is manifesting as a wave of modern epidemics, staging a rise in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinsonism, the explosion in autoimmune disorders and cancers even in young people, the increased risk of heart attacks and strokes, and perhaps most chillingly, the catastrophic decline in human fertility. We are not just making ourselves sick, we are compromising the very future of our species. In the next few slides, we will look at some of these impacts in more detail. Let's look closer at this core problem, the electrostatic charge. As detailed on pages 92 to 97 of our report, plastic particles become charged through friction and their chemical structure. This charge is the key to their toxicity. Our nervous system, our heart, our brain, they all function based on precise electrical signals. Charged nanoplastics create electrical chaos. They stick to cell membranes, destabilizing their electrical potential. They can physically block ion channels, which are the gateways for nerve signals. And they act as the magnets for other toxins, pesticides, and viruses, creating a super toxic particle that is delivered deep into our tissues. This is the mechanism of turning an inert piece of plastic into a biologically active weapon against our own bodies. Nowhere is this electrical interference more dangerous than in our brain. Nanoplastic can cross the supposedly impenetrable blood-brain barrier. Once inside, as the report notes on page 108, they are drawn to the lipid-rich myelin sheaths that insulate our neurons. They accumulate there and triggers its degradation. Without this insulation, our neuron signals break down. This process is directly linked to the pathology of diseases like multiple sclerosis and Alzheimer's. In fact, studies show that brains from dementia patients contain up to 10 times more microplastics than healthy brains. We are seeing a direct physical mechanism for how plastic pollution can cause neurodegenerative disease. This damage begins even before we are born. Nanoplastics cross the placental barrier, exposing the developing fetus to this toxic load. The development brain is sensitive to hormone electrical disruption. As our reports highlights, chemicals common in plastics like BPA are known endocrine disruptors that interfere with fetal brain development. This is therefore no surprise that we are seeing a frightening correlation between exponential rise in plastics pollution and the rise in the neurodevelopmental disorders like autism. While correlation is not causation, the evidence for a mechanical link is becoming overwhelmingly strong. This leads us to the most existential threat of all, infertility. Sperm counts in men have plummeted by over 60% in the last 50 years. Microplastics have ever found in every human semen and ovarian fluid sample tested. In men, they damage the mitochondria that power the sperm cell, immobilizing it. In women, they disrupt follicular development. Based on these acceleration trends, leading demographers and scientists forecast that humanity may become effectively infertile by 2045. This is not a distant possibility. It is trajectory we are currently on. So what can be done? Section 4 of our report analyzes current strategies, and the picture is bleak. We cannot filter them out. More than a decade ago, representatives of the ALLATRA international scientific community put forward the hypothesis that plastic pollution would exert an increasingly significantly influence on climate anomalies and exacerbate public health challenges. Today, these hypotheses are being confirmed by independent studies conducted by leading scientific institutions. As part of its strategy to counter this threat, the ALLATRA movement has proposed two key directions, both with practical applications and predictive potential. The first involves the large-scale implementation of atmospheric water generation technologies, which can simultaneously address freshwater scarcity and contribute to the removal of microplastic particles from the atmosphere and oceans. However, the deployment of AVG technologies must also take into account potential risks, specifically that the increased concentration of NNPs in the air and the resulting intensification of inhalation exposure in humans. This underscores the urgent need for the parallel development of highly effective filtration and protective systems. The second strategic direction proposed by ALLATRA involves the development of the methods to neutralize or shield the electrostatic charge of nanoplastics, one of the primary factors contributing to their toxicity. Charged nanoplastic particles actively may interact with cell membranes, proteins, and genetic material, forming stable molecular bonds. These particles can penetrate biological barriers, including the blood-brain barrier, accumulating in tissues, and trigger a cascade of cellular disruptions, from oxidative stress to apoptosis. Reducing the electrostatic activity of micro and nanoplastics could significantly decrease their harmful effects and slow their accumulation in the human body. Distinguished delegates, their evidence is clear. The nanoplastic threat is multifaceted, systemic, and existential. The solution must be found now, for all of us. Our collective future depends entirely on the actions we take today. Thank you.